welcome once again. We will be going straight to the issues that we have tabled for discussion for this morning. I've just, come to a rude awakening. I had a cold and it went, and I had been doing my job on Wednesday and all of that. This morning, since 7 o'clock, I've been sitting in this air-conditioned place, and suddenly I feel that I'm not completely out of it. Well, okay, so you bear with me in that regard, and let's see how we're able to get to these issues that we are doing this morning. And my guests who are supposed to be in the studio, Abdul Malik Kwekubako, whose documents are already here. And I suspect that he should be getting ready to get into the studio. Should join us shortly. Abdul Malik Kwekubako is editor-in-chief of the New Crusading Guide newspaper. We will also be joined by Inus Afuseni, who is MP Tamale Central and ranking member Legal and Constitutional Committee of Parliament. Dr. Oko Boy is MP Lejakuku and member Select Committee on Health. He should also join us. And right here in the studio, though, is Clara Berry Kasati. She's a private legal practitioner and teaches the law at GIMPA. Thank you very much for joining us. And the very first issue we are going to deal with has to do with the matters of corruption that have come up. So I'm not going to waste your time. Let's go straight and listen to Abu Jinapo, who is a deputy chief of staff. He, together with his other colleague, Asenso, have been accused by A+. We're looking at the matters that are arising as a result of that, including a leaked tape that suggests a compromise of the situation by police. Now, as you know, there are calls for other investigations rather than the police process, because the police cleared them of any wrongdoing. And now that the police is being found, as it were, to have acted in a way that compromises the whole situation, what should happen? So let's quickly listen to Abu Jinapo. The first time since the issue happened, he spoke to it. Let's listen to him. After that, we will also hear the leaked tape that suggests that there's been a compromise of the situation.
Case has been all this while, and I believe in all modesty and humility, by the grace of God, that is the truth. What is the truth? We received a complaint from Unibank that they had a contract with Kolebu Teaching Hospital alongside another bank in Ghana. I don't want to mention that bank, for the receivership of revenue at Kolebu. I think the contracts have been existing for 3 or 4 years. Kolebu intended to roll out a different phase, another phase of revenue collection. And in from the reasoning of Kolebu, they require one bank to collect the revenue. So one of the banks must go. Unibank lodges this complaint to say they were not, and I repeat with emphasis, this is Unibank's account. It's not my account. It's not Mr. Francis Asenso-Boachi's account. Unibank lodges a complaint to say we were not permitted to participate in the process leading to the selection of a bank to collect this sole bank collecting revenue program that Kolebu wants to put out. And that Ghanaian Indigenous Bank, and incidentally, the other bank is a wholly owned foreign bank. Ghanaian Indigenous Bank, so on and so forth, has been shortchanged. They've been treated unfairly. Now, Kojo, is it unusual for a bank to lodge a complaint to the office of the Chief of Staff? It is not, because at the office of the President, I am the one that the Chief of Staff has designated as the officer responsible for petitions and complaints. And on a daily basis, I handle 10, 20 into 30s of complaints and petitions coming from all manner of persons: MDC, MPP, MPs, ministers, former ministers, pastors, ex-convicts, you name it. So it is not unusual. Now, the complaint having been made, I picked up a phone and called a colleague appointee of the President, a colleague member of government, the Chief Executive Officer of Kolebu, Dr. Anya, who incidentally also happens to be a very good friend and more like a father of mine. I called him and I sought to seek clarification from him in respect of the complaint that we've received. At the time I called him, he was in Sogakope attending a district chief executive swearing-in ceremony. So he said, oh, he's at a function, he can't talk now, so he'll get back to me. We barely spoke about the matter. We barely did. We spoke for about 1 minute, 30 minutes. 1 minute, 30 seconds.
Okay.
And then I mentioned this matter to my colleague, Mr. Francis Sensobwachi. That is it. We've never spoken to him about it. We never went back to him about it because having spoken to him and waiting for his response, which never came, I mentioned the matter to the Honorable Minister of Health, who is the sector minister. I mentioned the matter to my boss, the Honorable Chief of Staff. We sat down, we discussed it, and the Minister of Health promised and committed to deal with it and that we should leave it to him. This was a time when Kolebu did not have a board. And the minister himself said, given that Kolebu doesn't have a board, and given the enormity of such a decision, he thinks that he himself will intervene to resolve the matter. So far as I was concerned, and so far as Mr. Francis Sensobwachi was concerned, we had dealt with the matter conclusively, because we had reported to the appropriate sanctioned official sector minister who had committed to deal with the matter. When the person who accused us went to the police, he corroborated this story.
Hello.
Hello, madam.
We're trying to call you.
My phone.
Okay. There was one issue that wanted to clear. Madam, your Facebook post not itself.
My friends also that day there was so much pressure now. Like
who you free?
But
so
the issue is that
any record of it out.
No.
You don't have any.
No.
But yeah, one in the court, the reproduction version where people are quoting. That this is what you put on there. Where I wanted to see again is okay, I said these people are corrupt. But the corruption, you given the reason why you said it, which we are going to confirm. But you also said these people are thieves.
This I said they are what?
They are thieves. That is what the report is saying. Did you say they are thieves?
No, I didn't say that.
So it is the corruption that you said.
Yes.
Okay. So then, when you look past that, I want you to add to the statement that we didn't say they are thieves, so that we can say that one you denied it, that you didn't say that. But for the corruption, you insisted that and you gave reasons for why it was. We went to Kolebu today, and
okay.
When I came back, I haven't been too well.
Sorry.
Not too fine because I'm sick. Because of the issues that I had to share. And I don't know. I came to inform my boss, and he's also, I think he's worse than me. So we are trying to, and probably what you said is giving us opportunity to look at what is actually happening.
Yeah.
If you had not said this thing would have just gone. We've looked at the contract, the new one that they brought, and then the memorandum of understanding. We spoke to other people, the director of HR, the director of finance, and then they've also taken us through the challenges of the system and what they're actually bringing on board and the benefits and other things. And we've also looked at, we've confirmed there was a selection process where they had in order of merit. We've seen that document. We've seen the document that go to controller. We've also seen the response from controller. So we are trying to find the best way to go around it. We've invited these people. They will come tomorrow.
Okay.
The deputies of staff. We've invited them to come. Unless I'm hoping that they will come and say that. But what made me sad was that there's a letter that the CEO has gone to stop his earlier letter. And that was what made me sad. We should have insisted.
That's the when the pressure is coming from people in high position. Yeah, so then he felt that okay, let me stop there. Let me send a letter and wait, and then see. Yeah, then there is pressure, so much pressure that the person that the president has appointed can't work. Even when he takes a decision, he has to reverse it. Then what are we doing?
I hope that it can be resolved. So when we look, I just want you to deny that aspect because we cannot find your post. It's no longer on the Facebook. We cannot find it. But because we didn't mention that one, so we want you to say that even though it is in the public domain that you said you achieved, we didn't say that.
You see, there are some people, like yesterday I was saying.
Yeah, some people have also duplicated your this thing and they are talking.
People have created exactly. People have created plenty. So when I post, they also take the same thing. Okay. They also post some, and they don't post. Maybe they don't post exactly what I said.
Okay. So can you? That is what I want you to state. That this is what you stated, but you are aware that there are other people pretending to be you who are also posting things, but they are not you, so that we'll have it on record.
Yes, okay.
Why? That aspect was denied.
Yes.
As for the corruption aspect of it, from what you said and what we have gone to confirm, you wouldn't be too far from right to say that this is what happened.
Mm-hmm.
But we need to manage. The people are your people. We need to find the best way to make sure that Korle Bu works the way we all want it to work.
And our government too works.
Yeah,
so me right now, I am looking at how all of us can solve this issue. Take the public out, make Korle Bu work, and the government work.
Yeah, that is it. I was wondering, because you need somebody who will be neutral to tell them exactly what is there for them to understand. And I wish I could have an audience with the president himself.
Okay.
Because it looks like most of the things don't get to him.
Yes.
Most of the
I like it. I liked it yesterday. I've been thinking about it. When he said, "I feel sad for Nana." Yes.
Yeah. I feel sad for him. I think he has good intentions, but he is not going to achieve it.
Yes. If every public sector MD, CEO has somebody like me, I'm telling you, and the person they are opening their eyes and they are working and they are making sure that they are supporting the CEO to when the CEO is taking right decisions. By 2 years by now, at least Ghana will move forward some more.
No, we'll move forward. We'll move forward. I don't think those who have moved forward are better than us.
Yes.
They are not magicians. They are human beings, and whatever they have achieved, we can even achieve more. Better than what they have achieved. It's all about our attitude and the way we have to.
I've achieved my aim. For you going there, I'm fine.
we spent over. We got there. He said we should come at 11. We got there before 11, and we left after 2.
Wow, then that was like
so
3.
We asked questions. We spoke. We asked questions. We confirmed. We looked at documents. We made photocopies. We did all those to be sure that we understood.
So you heard Abu Jinapor to start with, and you just heard Mami Tiwa, a deputy CID, a deputy commissioner of police, in an interaction with Kwame Asare Dako, who is known as A+. Let me say welcome once again to my guest. Good morning and welcome. Thank you. Right, so we put it in perspective by playing the first ever reaction that came, and then we have had the leaked tape. I want to start with you, Kweku. What do you make, or what do you have to say about the entire development, the conduct of the police officer? You must have read her 10-paragraph statement, and haven't heard Abu Jinapor too.
Well. Look, there are 2 angles to it, 2 aspects. The allegation that was made and which attracted the attention of the police, CID, and the investigations that had gone on and the report that came. I put that one in one category.
Okay.
And then the subsequent development, this leaked audio tape,
right,
which comes out with a lot of implications, in my candid opinion. So I want. There's no Chinese war between the two.
Okay.
They are interrelated, but for purposes of analysis, doing the segmentation.
All right.
I have studied some few documents, and it was only recently. This is, I think, Thursday, subsequent to my appearance on Metro TV, that I began to gather the records. Because there was one thing that I found a bit intriguing, was missing. I was asking, what is it that happened at Kolebu? What was it about? That whole Kolebu thing, what was it about?
Okay.
In terms of contract, in terms of procurement and things, what was it? Because we're discussing a lot of things, the leak tape, all those things, and I'll be honest, at that point in time I was making my submission, I had little or no knowledge about what the Kolebu angle was about.
Same applies to almost everybody else.
Yes, so I asked that question on the Radia-based program and said that perhaps we should begin to follow the trail to Kolebu and find out what it was about. When I did, I then thought there had been a lot of distortion and exaggeration that had been put out there, and that had confused a lot of issues. Look, the Kolebu thing, and I've been able to access some records, it appears that it was triggered by the decision by management to more or less abrogate a contract. Some revenue collection things, the technical words I don't really know, with Unibank. Unibank apparently, together with Stanbic, were running that particular process of collecting their cash and, giving it to them. The management decided that, first of all, having two banks doing that job was creating a lot of problems, especially when the banks didn't have any interface communication. So they triggered an aspect, a clause in the memorandum of understanding, gave 90 days indication to Unibank that we are getting you out. And apparently because they had had some discussions with Stanbic, some interactions, and they thought that Stanbic had a superior product. So they decided to stick with Stanbic. And then Unibank petitioned. I have a copy of their petition here, to the Vice President, copy to the Chief of Staff and others. So that's how come the Office of the Chief of Staff comes in. Now, to be honest with you, the issue that was raised by the Chief of Staff's office, in this case, Jinapo and Asenso, we can, if we want to personalize it, and more so, I think, by Asenso, was to the effect that, look here, the selection process was not transparent or competitive. It appears that you are taking a decision to go with one group without giving the other group some opportunity. I've seen documentation, the statements from Dr. Anyang, A+, and the rest, that tries to suggest that Stanbic did some presentations that convinced them that Stanbic had a superior product. They claim that the Unibank did not appear during those when those opportunities were offered. But that, but you see, that's not exactly also competitive tendering as such in terms of following the procedures. So the idea, the advice from the Chief of Staff's office through these two deputies was to the effect that what you are doing is irregular, and then particularly in the absence of a board, a governing board of Kolebu Teaching Hospital, that could not be sustainable. So wait, hold your fire, and let the board be in place, and such serious decisions could be taken. From me, from that angle, I really thought it was a storm in a teacup if you begin to talk of corruption in that context. But you see, I've seen the A+ statement. I don't know, sometimes it's tricky. I've seen AB's A+ statement to the police. You know these things. very well. You are the lawyers here, I mean. In his covering page, he makes the point that he has not accused the two gentlemen of taking bribe money. It's here. It says, if you don't mind, I'll read. I've never said anywhere that the two deputy chiefs of staff at the presidency have taken bribe money. However, I've attached my statement. Now, what is interesting? What is it that he's saying in terms of corruption? And when you read some of these things, then perhaps when we come to the leak tape, we may be able to start getting some idea. Okay. He makes a lot of, A plus appears to have been appointed, maybe unofficially, by Dr. Anya as a special assistant or field assistant, because he appears to be doing a lot for him. More or less is, aide camp. Okay. It's all here. He had given him some role to play in order to help him upgrade the quality of management at the hospital. But then let's get to the basics. I read a lot of things here. If this is a plus statement, it's typed, apart from the front one that is handwritten. And he's making statements. Just we're dealing with the corruption. And I'm going to read it the way it is. He says, after when they terminated the agreement with Unibank protested. I have their letter of protest to the management as well, and then the petition to the vice president and all that. Now, A plus in writing a statement to the police, makes these statements. He says, Mr. Sanso and Mr. Jinapo called me several times, as well as Dr. Felix Anyang, to stop the termination of agreement with Unibank, because Unibank has made donations to the new Patriotic Party political campaigns. He had said the guys had not taken any monies, bribe money, but now he's making this case of corruption in terms of what he claims to have been done much earlier in 2016. All right. That's what he's saying. Okay. He says the Minister of Health also called the acting chief executive while we were together to stop the termination letter to Unibank. Several pressures were put on Dr. Felix Anya to cancel the termination agreement, even though it was Kolebu Teaching Hospital's management team decision and not the acting chief executive's personal decision. Mr. Sanso and Mr. Jinapo, let me read this. At the point, the acting chief executive gave me a confidential letter to be given to His Excellency the President. I did not know the content, but Mr. Sanso saw me on the day of delivery and has since then been accusing me of having reported him to His Excellency the President, and has held me in contempt to the extent of snubbing me publicly on the stage in Cape Coast. It is my considered opinion that Mr. Sanso and Mr. Jinapo, who are government officials, are taking advantage of their position to favor a private business, Unibank Limited, to the disadvantage of the public interest in 1, saving of lives, 2, increase of revenue, 3, the efficient operations the Kolebu management, teaching hospital management have opted for. Mr. Sanso and Mr. Jinapo are extending protection, favoritism towards Unibank for its operations in Kolebu Teaching Hospital in exchange for Unibank's contributions to political campaigns is a corrupt conduct. For Unibank to profit inappropriately from their position in the operations and perpetuate loss of revenue, loss of human lives in Kolebu Teaching Hospital because of their contributions to the MPP is also corrupt. For Mr. Sansu, Mr. Jinapo, and Minister of Health, now get it, there's a third name coming in, Minister of Health. Indeed, there's another minister mentioned, Amewu of Mines, Lands, to be demanding acting Chief Executive Officer of Kolebu Teaching Hospital to withdraw the termination letter sent to Unibank, or else his preferred, please listen, or else his perceived preference for Kolebu Teaching Hospital Board Chairman may be changed, amounts to political extortion. The request has the potential to affect the public officer, Dr. Felix Anya, or the public agency, Kolebu Teaching Hospital, making their actions not in an honest or impartial manner as desired in the public service. This is the corruption allegations he's making. He offers nothing of evidential value to back it. He talks about past so-called contributions made by Unibank to the MPP campaign. Right. This is all he gave to the police. For me, on that aspect, I said this was just hot air. That aspect. And I thought if I had not listened to the leak tape, I would have said there's no need for anybody to waste time on this matter again. It is the leak tape that made me decide that, look, perhaps we need fresh investigations into this whole saga, and not by the police, for good reasons. And it's in the interest of the two deputy chiefs of staff, as well as government, that a fresh probe is instituted. I'm aware some group has gone to Shraj, yes. I'm told. That's fine. I'll back them in principle. I think it's a useful exercise. I don't know if they have the material to back their case at Shraj, because Shraj, you just don't petition. You must also have something to use in dealing, advancing your case. Right. I keep on making this point all the time. Yeah. I've been there before and I know how it works. So you just don't think that what has been written in newspapers or said on radio and TV is enough material. They all may be useful for presentation. But beyond that presentation, when adjudication and the determinations and investigations by strategists begins, then you must beef what you've sent there up with something more, substantive, right. Which is interesting. But I like the process. But to be honest with you, based on just what, and I have Dr. Anyan's statement, it doesn't go as far as A+ does. And I've seen Asensu and Jinapo's statement. I've seen the Unibank's statement. When you put all together, I'm a layman though, I'm not a professional investigator. I come to the conclusion that this was a storm in a teacup. But the police lady and her conversation, the content analysis I made of that conversation, and considering that it's public now, right. The key point has been publicized. So it's raised integrity issues relative to their earlier conclusions. And for the police itself to be vindicated, if indeed they insist that they did a thorough investigation, I think they must be willing to allow a certain verification of their findings through another investigation. The lady, I feel sorry for her, for a woman to rise to that level. Deputy CID boss, it's no joke. If you know how our police system was formed and been grown, for a woman to get to that stage, that shows her character, that shows the strength, that shows her willpower. I think her career is at a crossroads. Whoa. And it's so sad. You see, the content analysis of some of the things she said. Yeah, it's possible she says the tape is doctored. Well, I have a lot of experience in this area. The voice is hers, yes, true. She admits. It's like Otabil admitted that the voice was his, but the tape was doctored because it had been cut, pieced together. That's doctoring. That's editing. Right. For effect. You take some out, you bring some in. I'm not in the position to decide, to determine whether what she's saying now is true or not. But those that came out, some of the things that she said, critical point, for instance, when we went to Kolebu, what UA Plus is saying, you were not far from the truth. I don't think that was Chinese that she spoke. She spoke English. What is it that she was saying? An inquiry. Even the police, they have internal disciplinary measures. And let's not forget Kofi Boachi's case, please. Right. Remember that. When he, as a director of operations, so I'm not suggesting that police people can't do those things. But again, it's done even sometimes with sanction from above, that this is an operation you are undertaking. So you are enticing, you are entrapping, you are trying to get information.
And Abu is not happy because she made those comments before
Fantastic.
they appeared before them.
Absolutely fantastic. So I asked, what was it that she was referencing? Was she referencing, and if you read all the documentation, you realize that, yes, Unibank and Stanbic were in competition. Unibank apparently had been taken out. Now, some people say, why are you taking the local company out and giving it to the foreign one? Okay? Why didn't you give the local company a chance to compete in terms of fairness and justice? So, was she referencing the fact that in selecting, okay, those people, the Stanbic, as opposed to Unibank, that was not a fair decision?
Okay.
Was she referencing that? Or was she referencing the intervention? Do you understand? Because there was intervention by the two deputy, more by the first one. I think I said should be the first deputy chief of staff. I'm not sure. That is really not material to the point I'm making. That, hold on, you can't terminate without a presence of a board, and two, you can't select sole sourcing as the approach. Was he referencing those things? I may do a deduction, but I don't think that's a substitute for an established finding by a fresh inquiry. And that's why I've shifted my position, that in spite of all this, my conviction that the two deputy chiefs of staff did absolutely nothing wrong. I'm convinced, based on the documentation I've seen. I think the only way forward for Ghanaians to accept it is to do a transparent, fresh.
Let's hear the Honorable Yunus Hussein. What do you say?
Oh, well, thank you so very much. And I wish you a speedy recovery.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, your voice is hoarse today.
I was actually out of it. Then I came here like 7. I sat under the air conditioning only to realize that
the most
I'm not out of it yet.
Tool of a lawyer.
Right.
His voice. Right. Yeah. May you recover so quickly.
Thank you.
Now, I think that basically there's more questions than answers. And like we said earlier when we appeared on this program, in connection with the referral of the matter to the police, we said that that probably was an attempt to whitewash the issue. And I think that we have been vindicated, because subsequent to the investigation by the police, that's emerged that the report was cooked. So the integrity.
How can you make a sweeping statement?
Well,
come on.
Okay, so it's procured. Now, clearly, my brother Kokobako, you have made an important point.
Yeah, but a lawyer talking, and you are so sweeping.
I'm so convinced in my mind.
I hear you.
That the report that was produced clearly, subsequent to the availability of the discussions that went on before, between the police officer Tiwa and A+, could not have been a true reflection of a detailed investigation that was carried on into establishing the truth or otherwise of the allegations were made against the two chiefs of staff.
Okay.
And you see, and we had said, and I still believe, that the complaint by A+ and Kennedy Japan gave Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, the President of the Republic of Ghana, an opportunity to demonstrate his commitment to fighting corruption.
How?
Well, so you have internal procedures, you have internal systems. All governments do. And when such allegations are made, you don't employ half steps and tokenism to unravel the truth of the...
Resort to the police is half step and tokenism?
Yes, half steps. Because one, no one can underestimate the capacity of the executive to establish the veracity of an allegation of corruption made against an appointee of the state. Unless the government says, well, we are not interested. What are the institutions? What are the institutions of state, therefore? And who are they available to? Article 58 of the Constitution is so clear. And those institutions were available to the president to use to convince himself that a prima facie case or otherwise had been made against his two appointees. He chose not to use them.
Please explain yourself.
We have the Bureau of National Investigation.
Okay.
We have the National Security Apparatus. We have the Minister for Health. We have many other state institutions that could be used by the president. I'm not saying even by the police, by the president, to establish a prima facie case of culpability or otherwise of his two chiefs of staff.
What is it that the BNI does that the police doesn't do?
Well, the BNI, if you watch their operations, are more into covert operations. All of us sitting here could be under some form of surveillance by the BNI without our knowledge. That is what they do. They will go further than the police, who are clearly a civilian institution whose presence is always manifest by the uniforms they wear and by their availability. It's not for lack of reason that we said the BNI must not wear.
BNI investigates the National Health Insurance thing as well as the National Service Scheme.
Yes, right.
Thing.
Yes.
Under the Mahama administration.
Yes.
That was covert operation.
Oh, you know what happened before you heard about the investigations?
Oh, come on.
You wouldn't know. My brother, I'm telling you, you don't know.
Oh, come on.
And to presume to know is to believe that you have other
Were those two incidents covert operations? That's the question.
They were
I asked.
covert operations until a prima facie case of culpability or otherwise was established.
Not true.
That was made. It's true. I'm telling you before. It's true. It's true. And that it was only when the BNI found that National Service Secretariat was involved in some scheme that was costing the state a lot of money. That made the president direct further investigation, and that made the matter public, and that was when people started approaching.
Can we stick to this issue as regards the information available to us?
The information available to us is that two chiefs of staff were involved in some acts of corruption. Now, I'm so grateful to my brother Abdul Malik Okubaku, and I think that I will rely on the statements that he has read. The charge is not bribery. The charge is corruption. That by the availability of certain facts, which facts could inappropriately influence the decision of a governing official in the matter of Kolebu to A+, and I agree with him, that could be corruption. That because
could it still be corruption or potential corruption now that we know that Abu and his friend or whoever, or Abu in particular, never spoke with A+ about it, never tried to bring any pressure to bear on Dr. Aya? They had 1 minute, 30 seconds conversation. I want to talk to you about this to know your side. The man says, I'm unavailable until a certain time. They don't get to speak again.
Well, I'm not relying on your facts.
Oh, we just listen to him.
These are facts.
I'm just saying that.
They are even documented
I'm
in
just
the
saying
police
that.
investigations.
It's Samson, you're a lawyer. There's a difference between bribery, where a person accepts an inducement for the performance of his public office. A+ says he never said that, and I agree with him, he never said that.
Where a chief of staff is responsible for petitions, and a petition comes to him, and he calls the central person involved to say, this has come to us. Eventually, the chief of staff herself, we are told, gets involved. The health minister, whose ministry this comes under, is handed the issue to deal with.
Yes.
What have they done wrong?
Oh. You know, when you talk of corruption, you're not talking about a private man or a woman in the market at Kolebu or Makola who has been influenced in the way to sell her tomatoes to one customer or the other. You're not talking about that. You are talking about the circumstances of a person in public office that allows that person to use that position to flout laid down procedure.
So evidence.
That's what you're talking about.
Yeah, evidence.
So you must understand that I can tell you that the two chiefs of staff in their private capacity, when they were following Nana Adodanko Akufo-Addo out about the place, campaigning, would never have been charged with corruption.
Yeah, but that's not the issue here.
The issue is that they are chiefs of staff. They have been appointed to perform certain functions. In performing those functions, it is alleged that they inappropriately exercise their powers. That's what his statement is alleging.
It's alleged.
Yes. Yeah. So to inappropriately exercise your powers as a deputy chief of staff is to involve yourself in corrupt activities.
Yes, so evidence.
That's just what they are saying. And I think that we should make a clear distinction. I mean, I hear people talking about the allegation as if it was an inducement. No, I never got that feeling.
Okay.
I never got that feeling. A+, and from the statement he's written, A+ is simply saying that, well, look at what has happened. It appears that these things have happened because somebody in public office who is lawfully entitled to receive petitions and who has authority to deal with the petitions is dealing with those petitions in such a way that is exercising his discretion.
How should they have dealt with the petition?
Openness. What drives corruption? Fairness, openness, transparency,
That's actually
accountability.
what they called for.
How?
That's what they're calling for.
But that's what they
Even that is what A+ is calling for.
No.
In the statement, you read the statement. I don't have copy, and I don't know the circumstances under which the police gave you.
These were insisting on. The police never gave me. Don't do that. Well, come on, come on.
So, brother,
My brother.
I always say when you are in court and you even want the police to give you the witness statement, is you have to go through a battle. And but
don't forget,
I'm eternally grateful to you. In fact, we would have been discussing this issue in Voku if you had not read this.
There's a reason I started with him.
Yes, that's the reason. I mean, and I also commend you for starting with him because he's put the discussion in perspective.
So again, wrap up on that point.
Yes.
They get the petition.
Yes.
You say openness.
Openness. So they get the petition.
So hold on. They call the key persons involved.
Yeah, individually.
Yeah,
the chief of staff.
Yes, it's important for you.
The chief of staff.
That adjective is very important.
The chief of staff under whom they work is aware that they are doing this.
Yes.
The Minister for Health is brought in and asked to take over from that point. What's secret about that?
Everything is secret about
They should have called Joy FM to join them.
They should have called the party and called the Kolebu.
But those were preliminary moves.
And called
That's incredible.
The committee that was put in place to review the collection and listen to all sides in the presence of each other.
Okay.
And then make a determination. That's how you engender or engender transparency and fairness. So you see, because they did it.
As far as you are concerned, there's a charge of corruption to maintain.
There's a charge of corruption.
And what should happen going forward and to the policewoman?
And I agree for the policewoman. I think that it was an overzealous attempt to protect the MPP government from the charge of corruption, and she has herself to blame. And it stems from the way we appoint police. I mean, the police
Not
officers.
blame. What should happen to her?
Nothing should happen to her. She was just.
She hasn't done anything wrong.
What has she done wrong?
Okay.
She was so much concerned about the image of the MPP, and she was willing to share her frustrations with A+.
Okay.
Unfortunately, the conversation was recorded. We all do in our private homes. We make sure that we are not recorded. But she was unfortunate to have the conversation recorded. But the conversation is very revealing. I mean, and so I agree entirely with my brother Abdul Malik Okubako.
Right.
Again, offers President Nana Danko Akufo-Addo another opportunity. The first opportunity was missed. This is another opportunity.
Great.
Yeah. Something. Let me start by saying a very good morning to all your viewers and to my brothers watching from and sisters from Lechokoko. A few battles. There's very good reason why if allegations are made against a person like the electoral commissioner, there must be first the establishment of a prima facie case before even thinking of asking her to step aside when you go into the merits of the allegations. Why am I saying this? Otherwise, people will throw allegations at all the people working at the Flagstaff house. And because work is about to be commenced into those allegations, everybody over there ought to go home. You can't run a government like that. It is true, when the person's position makes it possible for interference in the process, then in investigating the person, it is also proper to add that they should step aside.
Okay.
But if you have the CID being tasked to go into the issues, and you have these deputies at the Flagstaff house, it is very difficult to conclude that they have, because they are part of the executive, they can tell the police what to do. So I think we should be careful not to go that tangent, that once an accusation is made against you, beyond being investigated, step aside. Otherwise, everybody at the Flagstaff house can move on Monday, because Monday morning, one person can say that this gentleman is corrupt, this lady is also corrupt. So that's the first point. Second point, at no point in our recent history did the opposition say that they were uncomfortable with the CID as a body mandated to go into this issue. At no point. In fact, they've never on record told us that they prefer the BNI to the CID doing this job. It is because now there is a voice which obviously casts some shadow on their credibility. The opposition is comfortably saying that the BNI could have done a better job. So my point is that let's be fair and honest. If they had issues with the CID, the first day the CID was tasked to go into this matter, they should have put on record that to us BNI can do a better job because they are good at doing covert operations. So that is another point I want to make. Now, if you ask any Ghanaian who they would prefer to investigate a matter that has to do with a politician, a public official, if you ask a Ghanaian to choose between BNI and CID, something, I'm absolutely sure that the Ghanaian will choose the CID. And you know why? Because of the history of the BNI. Ghanaians believe or sort of think that if there is any executive influence, it's greater on them than the criminal investigation department. I mean, these are things that if we are real, we can easily accede to. So my point is that the CID, it's a body that is mandated to do some of these things. They are not a perfect institution. Right. If we have evidence or proof to show that there's been unprofessionalism, that's assuming the voice is what it is, we must be bold to see how we critique the organization or the institution and help them to become more efficient. Obviously, the president is very much aware of the ills and the suffering that this country goes through as a result of corruption. As a government, we know that we must be very, very aggressive at fighting corruption. And that's why when these allegations were made, they were not left unattended to. But let me also add that it is very dangerous when allegations are taken home as they are without insisting on very hard evidence. And so far, A+ has made a lot of wild allegations, but we've not been able to get very hard evidence. With the Kolebu issues, I made some few points here. Something, if the management of Kolebu, after their audit or after taking over, feels that they have to sever their relationship with Unibank, and they are doing it in accordance to the procurement rules and regulations, then they are on the right track. It is true that a supervising body is Office of the Chief of Staff or the Presidency. Now, this is where we draw the lines. Assuming they were doing the right thing, but for some funny reasons, or for some reasons A+ alleged about support to government in opposition, all that, they are being stopped. That is where you can talk about corruption and using influence to stop people from doing the right thing. That's where you can talk about they being stopped from being efficient and saving lives and all that. But what if they actually breached rules also? I'm talking about the management, and we're doing the wrong thing. Then, assuming that's what they were doing, if Abu and Chief of Staff and Minister come in,
we are told
yeah,
they petitioned.
Yeah. The Chief of Staff.
No, they protested.
Yeah.
Before petition.
Yeah.
We don't know the content of the protest.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Which
The
protest?
Unibank.
Ah, okay.
I know that. I'm not going to. All I'm saying is that they, as a management, I'm talking about Dr. Anya and his team, if they've done an audit and the terms of the contract with Unibank, there is underperformance, and there are clauses that allow them to severe relationship and go for another one. The most important is that after an audit of their actions, they should be, conforming to the rules of procurement and all that. Now, assuming that they did the right thing, but somebody from the presidency was trying to stop them, that is where you can talk about corruption. I hope you get my point. Mm. But if they were doing the wrong thing and a supervising body steps in to ensure that the right thing is done.
If they had put in a protest,
yeah,
why don't they follow that protest?
Yeah.
Through channels without recourse to the presidency?
Oh, yeah. You know, I think there's a small history to Kolebu and Kofanoche. You know, when you take, let's say, Lekma Hospital, they come directly under the Ministry of Health. Okay. But the teaching hospitals, they have some very serious level of autonomy. Although they have some relationship with ministry, most or more often, they are, when it comes to authority to supervise them or give directions, most of the time it comes from like the presidency. You know, we've had CEOs who protested that the Minister of Health could not undo them, as in effect their removal, because they did not appoint them. So that's why I sort of understand why petitions.
Is that not a suggestion that from what A+ has provided officially to the investigation, you protest, and then you go petitioning the presidency? Does it not suggest that because they know
that they have friends there,
that, oh, we have sponsored the party, we are giving money for party activity, so we can use that?
Yeah, I get it.
Does that not support what Yunus Afseni is saying?
You see, there are a lot of things involved. If you send a protest to the management of Kolebu, and you believe strongly that there is prejudice against you by the new management, you are not stopped from petitioning the supervising authority. Excuse me. So they've not breached any code or rule by going to the presidency. But you see, something. Let's get this straight. Like I said, because the office of the president have a supervising role over what happens in Kolebu, assuming Kolebu was doing the wrong thing and they stepped in, they are only being effective, as in doing their work well. But if the management was doing the right thing, but power was being brought, pressure was being brought to bear to stop doing the right thing to favor another person, you can talk of corruption. I want that to be made clear. But you see, whether you like it or not, because of the public interest in some of these things, it is important that a body, I'm not talking about a criminal body, but at least a body of people who know the ins and outs of these organizations, goes to do an audit of what is happening at Kolebu, so that they can tell us conclusively that Kolebu was doing the right thing, but somebody was trying to stop them, or Kolebu breached rules and that they should be advised to do the right thing. This is also very important.
Okay.
And with the voice, let me just say a second that we all were happy when the CID report arrived, with the assumption that all processes leading to the conclusive report were sacrosanct or not tainted, that the processes were professional and all that. Assuming that admitting that the voice we are hearing is true, it is obvious that the processes preceding the report were tainted. and a tainted process cannot produce a clean report. And a report which is not clean will be difficult for us to use to address the perception.
Right.
So I also agree with Senator Kweku that the government will look at any other body that is proposed that we all agree on, that will go to the bottom of the matter. Right. Very important.
Yes, and
the Unibank
protest.
The protest, they of course addressed it principally to the solicitor, Kolebu Teaching Hospital, and then they copied His Excellency the Vice President, the Honorable Chief of Staff, Republic of Ghana, the Honorable Minister for Health, the Honorable Minister for Finance, the Chief Executive Officer of Kolebu, and the Controller and Accountant General Department.
Okay.
This is the trail.
Effectively, what was your protest about?
Well, can I read it?
Yes.
It says, we acknowledge receipt of your letter dated 12 July 2017 on above subject, which is termination of agreement.
Okay.
In the said letter, you refer to the termination clause in the Memorandum of Understanding signed by our two institutions and your election to invoke the said clause, giving us 90 days notice. We wish to inform you that Unibank Ghana Limited has been partners with Kolebu Teaching Hospital for a number of years, during which both parties have enjoyed fruitful working relationship. A situation that culminated in our embarking on many impactful social responsibility interventions for the hospital at great cost to the bank. We presented our fee collection proposals to Kolebu Teaching Hospital after a series of discussions and presentations to the management and board of directors of the hospital. Okay. And at a time when the hospital did not even have a budget for the required infrastructure to ensure a smooth, real-time service was delivered. Motivated by the understanding of a long-term relationship with the Kolebu Teaching Hospital, we have invested heavily putting the infrastructure in place to support the hospital's billing and fee collection system, including network links, computers for billing departments, as well as network switches that have enhanced the service delivery of departments even outside of our fee collection mandate. We are aware of your right under the termination clause in the MOU, but as partners in the delivery of healthcare services, would have thought that your action would have been preceded by a discussion with us on any issues of concern to the hospital, especially as we have gone far in process of procuring a state-of-the-art hospital management system for the hospital based upon your request.
Okay.
In the light of the foregoing, we request that you consider your decision to terminate our agreement. We further request a meeting with management of KBT, that is Kolebu Teaching Hospital, to discuss any issues of mutual concern and the way forward. We count on your cooperation. Yours faithfully. It's signed by Michael K.A. Anochi, Head of Legal Department, and Eko Nyakun Dazi Dennis, Executive Director, Global Markets and Retail. And they copied, as I said, the other persons.
What do you make of it? Is there corruption?
Is there clearer counsel, please? Can you give me an opportunity? You see why we're saying that if you are given a function to perform, you must perform the function in accordance with your authority. The letter again betrays the Deputy Chief of Staff.
How?
The letter is addressed to the solicitor.
But it's also copied to the Chief of Staff.
So how can somebody who is copied take over an investigation into a complaint?
No, I don't get it.
Yes,
okay. See,
the letter is written.
Should be told. You're running ahead of me because that was one of the questions.
Okay, that's okay. That's okay. Thank you.
Clara.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Santo. And then good morning to our viewers and our listeners. Let me just take this opportunity to wish my sister a happy birthday because I didn't get the opportunity to wish her a happy birthday.
Even at the presidency, it is addressed to the vice president and copied the chiefs of staff.
Yes. So what's wrong with that?
No, the protocol is that.
No. See, do you know whether the vice president asked the chief of staff to act on it?
Possible.
Do you know petitions usually are acted upon by the chief of staff?
Possible.
From Kufuor's time, from Rollins? No, it is not that it's possible.
Particularly
that is
where
what has been going on.
Particularly where Jinapo says, I am in charge of petitions. Okay, thank you.
You are behaving as if you haven't been in government before.
Sorry, please, let's hear Clara.
Stop.
Sorry, let's hear Clara.
That's not your usual style. Yeah, he's been mischievous.
Clara, don't wait. Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, so as I was saying, I wish Jeremina a very happy birthday. Now to come
Too much
to
propaganda
the issues,
today.
you asked whether or not there has been corruption. Before I come to answer that question directly, I think I would want to go through a certain process.
Okay.
Now, at least, I think I should add a caveat that all the parties here, of course, I can understand that it's not very easy for any of them because other people's reputations, hard-earned reputations are at stake. And no matter the conclusion of this one way or the other, it will be very difficult for them to have their reputation back the way it was before this. But the issue is, how did we get here? We got here because a petition was made from the facts that we have, that a petition was presented to the Office of the Chief of Staff. The reason why the petition was presented was because contracting one party to a contract had a grievance from the letter that was read because the contract was terminated.
Right.
Now the question is...
And from what we read, it appears to have been terminated pursuant to a clause that allows that sort of termination.
That is correct. That from the letter, yes, it appears that there was a clause that allowed that sort of termination. I am aware that this has been going on. This is not the first time that a petition has been presented to the Office of the Chief of Staff.
Right.
But the question is, should such petitions be presented to the Office of the Chief of Staff? We have institutions of state, and then we have a way that we want to go as a country. We have institutions of state that are responsible for resolving disputes.
Right.
Is the Office of the Chief of Staff one of those institutions? Now, of course, I have an idea why people would want to go to the Office of the Chief of Staff. But in our country where we are trying to fight corruption and perceptions of corruption, is that the way to go? Should people go to Chief of Staff? Because usually when people go to the Office of the Chief of Staff, let's face it, eventually they are counting on the use of influence.
Right.
The reason why they go there is because they believe that at least the office can use certain influence to resolve the dispute that they have. But is that the way to go? If you look at the statements that were made to the police, for example, the statements do not present an issue of corruption. So the statement, there's nothing in the statement to say that the two deputy chiefs of staff have done a corrupt act. I can't say evidence too. Yes, I can't say one way or the other, but the fact remains that they have been accused of corruption, and we are here because they are alleged to have done something wrong. People may believe it; they would be defending this for a long time. But my issue is we have to address the culture of going to the Office of Chief of Staff to go and have our grievances resolved. From the contract that, even from the letter the termination letter that Kweku read, it is clear that in that contract there is a mechanism for resolution of disputes. So why didn't they trigger that mechanism? There would have been a starting point and an end point. So why is it not the case that the complainant didn't trigger the dispute resolution mechanism and resolve it in accordance with the terms of the contract? If this had been done, I am not sure that people would spend a lot of time having to fight for their hard and reputation. So I think we have to revisit that culture, because corruption invariably is not really just about only giving money and taking money. Peddling of influence. Yeah. It's an ambit of corruption. It's some ambit of corruption. So we shouldn't create opportunities for influence to be peddled and then expect that people will behave like angels. It is not.
Present Ghanaian law is peddling of influence, corruption.
You can't say yes or no.
Strictly. Is it? No, it's not.
Yes, but are we saying that it is because it is not? Is it acceptable for us to peddle influence
it could be
as a country?
It could be a predicate act to corruption.
Yes.
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 It's difficult to prove, because if you are going to prove corruption in court as an ingredient in itself, it takes a lot to prove. But
this thing, there was no covert ops here. Yeah. There was nobody who was doing anything in secrecy.
Okay. So, but the point I'm making is, as a country, we have the law. We also have principles, or what we call ethics.
Right.
So, as a country, if we are going to say that, oh, it's okay to peddle influence, then let's agree that as a people, influence peddling is fine. But if we think that influence peddling is not fine, then we have to at least conduct our affairs in such a way that it doesn't come up, or there's no opportunity for it to happen.
Now, in our national document called the NACAP, we are adopting the United Nations definition of corruption. And we are seeking to redefine corruption to say what you are saying now.
Okay.
Misuse of your office.
Yes. So that's why I'm making this submission. You guys have hijacked my.
Sorry.
So for me, the way moving forward, like I said, this is not new. This is not the first time that a petition has been presented to the. But at least we should learn from this, and then the way forward, we need to reconsider that culture of presenting petitions to. And then secondly, I haven't finished. That's just one aspect of it. Now, secondly, let's look at the role. I'm now coming to the investigation process. Let's look at the role of the institutions. This was an investigation at the instance of the president, and because he wanted a closure to the case, one way or the other. Let's look at the way the investigation has been handled. Now, if you look at the role of the CID in this kind of investigation, it is what it is, investigation, which means that when people come and make allegations, it is your job, it is your responsibility to investigate. So there is a difference between investigating and adjudicating. So you cannot, as the CID cannot sit and say, if you make an allegation, then you bring me the evidence. That is virtually saying that, okay, you are responsible for proving the person guilty. But an allegation is not a proof of guilt. So that is why the police always works with information, and you have to rely on the citizens to provide you with information. It is okay for people to come to the police and say that, I think there is something wrong. Can you look at it? And then it is the job of the police to investigate to see whether or not a wrong has been done. That is why I actually even disagree with police arresting anybody just because a complaint has been filed. The fact is, once a complaint, that is one side of the story. Right. You do not know whether the person is speaking the truth or the person is not speaking the truth. You can't tell. So you have to investigate. Then after you investigate, you now come out with the findings to decide whether or not, in your opinion, you think the person has done something wrong. Then if you, in your opinion, you think the person has done something wrong, you can now take a process. That is why in a criminal process, it is the state versus the accused person, not the complainant versus the accused person. So the attitude of, well, we can say that A+ didn't bring evidence, but the CID cannot say that. If you are being professional, you cannot base your defense on the fact that he didn't bring evidence. It is your job to go, he has given you an allegation, investigate the allegation, come out professionally, and tell us that we have investigated the allegation, and these are our findings. You cannot come and tell us that, well, he didn't bring evidence, so we have closed the matter.
No, I think we'll be unfair to the police. They did investigate. They did investigate those things, all these claims here, and none of it came up with any evidence. For instance, look, one ridiculous one for this, for Mr. Asenso, and I'm reading from A+'s statement, for Mr. Asenso, Mr. Abujinapo, and Minister of Health, to be demanding acting Chief Executive Officer of Kolebu Teaching Hospital to withdraw the termination letter sent to Unibank, or else his perceived preference for Kolebu Teaching Hospital Board Chairman may be changed amounts to political extortion. Now, so the Chief Executive of Kolebu has his preference, somebody who he wants to be made board chairman. Does this make sense to you? He, the Chief Executive, has a candidate that he wants to be made board chairman. How can you even have checks and balances in such an institution? Okay, and where, now let me finish.
So good, but he can lobby the president.
It's so unethical. Listen, very unethical. If indeed this is true, that you are Chief Executive of an institution, the board is going to be set up, and you have a preference. And you want that person to be made chairman.
No, let's do this. Let's do this. We take a quick break. We'll return. Clara will
he can have a preference.
No, but if your preference is made
and his preference is the case.